Good morning and welcome to Smashy Business. I'm Lubna Hamdan.
And I'm Walid Shihabi. It's good to be back.
Walid, lovely to have you back. Great to speak to you. I was not here last week. I was in Qatar, so lovely to have a chat with you, especially because congratulations are in order.
Thank you so much.
So you Keeper has secured 4 million in equity and 30 million in sukuk. How do you feel, first of all?
Well, first thing is of course, we're very happy, but there's a sense of relief. Also, we've been working on this particular transaction for quite a long time, I'm going to say over 6 months, and we couldn't have asked for a better result. Great partners came in at this stage on the equity investment side. The lead was Beko Capital and MEVP, probably the most well-known and largest and oldest OGs in the venture capital space with notable exits, IPOs on NASDAQ and some of their companies, $1 billion plus exits in others. So great marquee names to have on board. But even what's bigger for us was the fact that we secured this sukuk offering of $30 million, underwritten term sheet signed by Franklin Templeton, which is a global investment house, and they specialize in debt instruments, private credit instruments, and in this case, sukuk instruments. So that was a major, I think, win for us securing that. And what it gives us is a balance sheet and significant funding in order to push through our rent facilitation product, which is the product that today we're seeing massive demand for and massive growth.
Wow, you said all of that in one breath.
Yes, I did. I've been saying it all week, so.
Absolutely brilliant. I mean, that's amazing, obviously, but I'm just curious, was it more difficult to raise money compared to, a couple of years back?
So, I mean, certainly in 2021, when we had less to show, it was actually quicker to raise equity because it's true. Of course, at a different valuation, at a lower valuation, our stage was much lower. We are early seed stage. Today, we've actually achieved product market fit. We have significant revenues in place, good customers in place. So obviously, the valuation is gonna be different. But the 2021, there was a lot of what we call dry powder allocated to the technology space in the region, and people were very quick to commit. Even in some cases, with not very convincing stories when it comes to startups and companies. 2024 is very, very different. There's much less available, and they're much more sort of tough in terms of the diligence that they do, and that applies both to venture capital firms as well as private investors in the space. But I think I view that as a positive. If you get through that, if you secure funding in this environment, it's actually even more sort of an endorsement and a validation of your business.
Walid, I think you're media trained and ready to go and do 100
Thanks
interviews.
To Wednesdays on Smashy Business.
Top notch. Has anyone trained you for these lines? That was really so well spoken. Well said.
I guess just the practice. I think the market
and the
reacted
passion
the passion. It is my baby. It is our baby. Myself and my co-founder and the team that is over there. So obviously we have a lot of passion for the solution we're building. But we've been talking about it for a few days right now. It's been very well received by the market, by the media, by people in the space, including, by the way, regulators and other ecosystem players. And it's just extremely encouraging that, for the most part, they all said, amazing, we like your solution, we love that you got funded and that you can scale it now.
Yeah, amazing news. It's great, I think, because some people were arguing a couple of years back that perhaps we do need more due diligence. We do need maybe tighter regulations.
It's typical in a maturing ecosystem, right? Yeah. And same was brought up in 2021 when it came to US startups, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of US startups raised a lot of money, and they really weren't worth the money that they raised. And the blame, also the maturity of the ecosystem on that. I think we're maturing overall. I think current market conditions are actually very positive for the best ideas to come through and the best businesses to succeed, as opposed to everybody.
Especially if the business is not, we've seen some startups have a lot of issues. We're not going to get into that now, but you guys can check it out on Smashy Business's Instagram account.
Absolutely. I just think that the industry overall matures and people learn from certain stumbling blocks that they face. You're not always experienced in every facet of setting up a business, the legalities of it, the regulation, and so on. So the more you see and the more you're involved in this space, the better I think the path that you built for yourself.
You said something, it's my baby.
Yeah.
I heard many a times people saying you shouldn't say that about your startup. You shouldn't get too attached to it. You shouldn't get too emotional.
Yeah. Well, maybe they haven't started a company and put so much into it that they made that recommendation. But I think it's inevitable. I think it becomes part of you. It becomes part of who you are. You're very vested in it. And unlike working for a company, when it is your own, there's more at stake, right?
Absolutely.
So I think it's inevitable that you start associating with it the same way you do your kids. I mean, I'm not saying it's that far, but.
It could be. I don't know. I don't have kids and I don't have a company. But there was something I saw that was really interesting. The founder of Whoop, Will Ahmed, said, because I can see the excitement, in your eyes, and I can see that fire. And I just remembered something really fascinating that he said. He said, we are told not to stress, but actually you should stress more and you should kind of embrace it, not verbatim, but he said this verbatim. He said, I feel like I'm really tired. I feel like I'm in the eye of the storm, and that's exactly where I belong.
That's very well put. I think I might even steal some of that at some point, but I subscribe to it entirely. You need to be under pressure. You need to be on your toes. You need to have a degree of stress in order, and anxiety, maybe a small degree of it, and adrenaline, in order to keep pushing all the time. Because it's easy to submit to tiredness, fatigue. You do a startup, you're going to fail multiple times on the way and still keep moving forward. And these things can accumulate on you. So you need to have that drive. You need to have that stress. There's no point, I think, in time where you feel de-stressed, not even when you've raised a round. Because when you've raised a round, the pressure is actually on to deploy correctly and to grow correctly. And you have more investors to please and you have more customers to provide for. So I don't think it stops until you completely exit.
Yeah, it becomes your fuel though, right? And we had someone on the show, she's kind of more of a career coach than a life coach. And she said, people say that you do need to log out of work, but actually if you're doing something that you love, and she said media, for example, you can't really log off because you always have to be in tune with, you have to know what's going on around you. That's great points. Moving on to events, lots of events happening.
A ton, yes.
We were in Doha. Have you been to Doha recently for any events?
Not very recently. I used to go much more often. Problem with being in a startup is you end up being a little bit myopic and just focused.
Such a big problem, such a bad problem to have, Walid.
I do like to travel. I like to visit, cities in the region, know what's going on. But I guess less so these days than I used to. But of course, you're very familiar with the initiatives that they've launched on the sort of supporting the startup space. So.
It was great. I think Doha has a lot of potential, and I do think we're going to see so many more of these events. And the Web founder was there actually, Will Ahmed. I tried to, doorstep and try and get an interview, but he just ran in the other direction.
Maybe he'll be back next year.
Perhaps. Maybe I'll catch him next time. But I was at CapSat yesterday, and we're going to be there tomorrow, hopefully doing our show from there. It's one of the leading, obviously, events for production, media, everything to do with broadcasting. Lots of interesting things, obviously blinded by the LED lights. But I did see one panel with Nasreen Ghazal, the VP of Rotana Media, and she said, if we keep saying that TV is dying, we are actually killing it. There is still a lot of demand for linear television, especially in Saudi Arabia. She said people still do spend from 3 to 7 hours watching television, and that's not because of sports, not because of news, and not during Ramadan. So there is still a lot of demand for that, she said.
And she would know. I would draw a parallel with another company, actually, probably the biggest media company in the Middle East, MBC Group. And we saw that company come up and publish its financials before its IPO and listing on the Saudi Stock Exchange. And of course, it's got a streaming division. It's pumping a lot of money into its streaming division to tap into that space. But by far, the majority of its revenues are in the linear television space. So that tells you that even with the high penetration rate of internet in Saudi Arabia, the young average age in Saudi Arabia, still the majority of consumption for a company like MBC is in linear television. So no, TV is not dead, but probably needs to also sort of reinvent itself in a way to make its content as appealing to a younger generation as streaming is.
Or the streaming platforms also need to cater to those audiences that are still watching linear TV, I guess.
And I think there's an interesting conversation to be had there on the product in terms of the thing about linear television is that it's pre-programmed for you, right? As opposed to where you are picking. So, I mean, this is just an idea, but I find myself on these streaming platforms spending most of the time trying to choose what to watch.
Exactly.
Right? While linear just gives you constant entertainment and is easier. There's no such paralysis with decision making, and you just go with it.
I mean, people nowadays, I guess, have so many options to choose from. Sometimes they just want someone to choose for them, right? She also mentioned something interesting. She said everyone keeps saying the younger generations have such a short attention span, but she said, but they're still watching the Marvel movies, which are 3 hours long. So that was, I just thought that was a pretty interesting point.
She's not wrong, but the TikTok generation at the end of the day is driven by short form videos. And if I look at the amount of time that a teenager spends watching a Marvel movie versus how much time they spend on TikTok, it's like a ratio of 1 to 100, maybe.
True. Good point. Another panel that I listened to, a very interesting one, Steve Critchley, the CEO of Illuminate Studios production house. Basically, they specialize in AR and VR. They said the UAE and Saudi Arabia are prime markets for those technologies. And he said he actually gets inspiration from the questions being asked because they're still not as familiar with with AR and VR when it compared to the US and Europe, for example.
There's generally not widespread adoption globally. It's not mainstream yet completely, that space. So I don't think the region's unique in that in that form. But from my point of view, I like to look at it from opportunities within the real estate space. Like I narrowed down and I see what it can do there, and what it can do is absolutely massive. There's I think he covered that point.
So he did say that what was most interesting is for old Emiratis, they're very keen on using this technology to look at what their old homes used to look like and then take inspiration from that to build their new homes. And I just thought it was a really lovely thing to say. And he also said something that was brilliant. He said, I've been here X amount of years and I'm not going home, I'm not leaving the UAE. So that was nice.
Tends to do that to you, doesn't it?
Yeah, indeed.
But certainly it's mainly also from the scale of the opportunity and how the opportunity in the UAE and the region opens itself up to innovators in different areas. I think application of AR and VR in the property space will be massive. It will shave a lot of work related to, from the construction side all the way through to the, handover stage of properties and the developers and how they're sort of doing their work and snagging efforts and so on, all the way through to marketplaces and what you buy and sell, and then also to home improvements and construction projects and so on. A lot of this you can imagine going completely virtual, completely digital. digital, where you plan everything, implement everything, etc., and just the physical part gets done in the background.
Definitely. Tamara is also my sister's name. Shout out Tamara if you're listening. But the CEO of Tamara said something interesting. This is not a panel, sorry. I just moved on to the next session because the video is in front of me and I really want to get your take on this. He said, stick to plan A, don't have a plan B, because that is when you begin to fail. That is the start of failure. Do you agree with not having a plan B?
Absolutely. You get rid of your safety net, right? And that's actually a very risky strategy, but you need to be very risk tolerant if you're going to go after starting something that is big and that you want to grow and that is disruptive and so on. And I think I get entirely his comment, and you probably, I mean, it's not always the case. You have startup founders who have multiple successes behind them and can afford to, fail in one. But by and large, when founders make, another path not an option, they become laser focused. Right? There's no other alternative. You break through that wall. You jump over that barrier rather than deciding to go the easy path, because it is there and you put it as an option in the first place.
I think not to confuse that with flexibility, though, and product market fit. I think, right? Because startups do.
You need to be responsive to the feedback the market is giving you about your product, about the direction you are going, etc. But it can't be.
Hint, Shark Tank to buy.
Kidding. Very true, but it can't be something that, if you're pivoting twice a year, you don't have a business. I forgot
Beko Capital is on the panel there, so let's just,
Oh, well, we have multiple actual shareholders from the Shark Tank
panel.
Really? Yeah, I mean, we've never advertised it, but actually, I think it's a majority of them.
Oh, nice, lovely, lovely. So great. Let's maybe cut this part out. No, I'm kidding. Please go ahead.
And that's why I'm saying, and I get what he said.
Maybe you should have a plan B after this this episode.
For other investors, no, I think we're very happy having them, and they've actually been adding value. And Beko in particular, very recently came on board and has been, flying our flag pretty high. So we're really grateful to have them, and a great track record. I mean, all the investors on that panel do have a significant track record. How the process goes on the production of Shark Tank, etc., I think it has space to improve over time, space to attract more interesting ideas, space to get a wider coverage for sure. But I think the core proposition of that is a very, very positive one. You're giving people a platform to talk about what they've put their heart and soul into, and you're giving them access to some good feedback and some great investors, and I think that at its heart.
Fun to watch as well. Yeah. Could be a little more fun, but still, it's just, I think, the little nuances that could be improved, as you said. You mentioned flying high. Wizz Air. Have you ever flown Wizz Air?
I have not yet.
So Wizz Air.
But I do budget airlines all the time. I travel in the region, and it doesn't make sense to do anything else.
I like that. Our CEO Richard flies normally Fly Dubai economy, and I like that. It's pretty.
It's my go-to. It's quick, it's easy, and it makes sense. And again, when you're a startup founder, every little saving matters, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I know people who will only fly business or first class, and it's just...
Yeah, you have to crack that attitude the minute that you get into...
Maybe it's a little insecurity, you know what I mean?
Possible.
Anyways, Wizz Air Abu Dhabi has launched a multi-pass. It's the region's first travel subscription service. It's tailored to travelers' needs, where subscribers can enjoy multiple trips throughout the year at fixed prices for tickets and baggage on international flights to and from the UAE. So it's basically a set monthly fee. They gain access to allegedly hassle-free and economical travel without concerns about price fluctuations. That's actually great.
I actually love it.
Yeah,
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I would have to look at the details and compare them to my actual spending right now. But what it might do is actually change my behavior a little bit. I'd be more willing to take a little trip, a short trip, a weekend trip on a certain month, because you know what? I'm subscribed. I have access to that service. It won't take me changing my budget or something like that. So I like it. But from a business point of view, everybody wants to go for SaaS. What SaaS is, software as a service. What that means really is the subscription service. So obviously Wizz is not a software, but the recurring income of a subscription is actually what we consider the highest quality income you can have, because it is recurring, it's continuous, and you can build over it rather than to have to sell a ticket every time, which is choppy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very hard to gain subscribers, but it's very hard to gain subscribers. It's easier to gain subscribers, harder to lose them, because nobody wants to unsubscribe and go through the hassle
especially
of
if they're properly utilizing the service.
Definitely.
What it also does is ensures loyalty. Right?
Absolutely.
You're not going to search around for the cheapest flight to take to X. You're subscribed now, so you're almost always going to go with with Wizz Air if you're a subscriber, and if it goes to the
definitely, I mean, some people would argue that loyalty is dead when it comes to consumers, and they keep moving from brand to brand. But I would disagree.
I think loyalty is a science. I think loyalty is one of the core business tenets, actually, and you have a lot of companies now completely focused. Some companies were born out of loyalty programs,
absolutely.
and it's a science. It's something that people are trying to crack. There's the natural loyalty because you like a brand and you're used to going there, and there's that element to it. But then there's the way they keep you there also. I think the best loyalty program probably in the world is the Marriott Bonvoy.
It is brilliant. I do love me some Marriott Bonvoy.
Yes, and people actually go out of their way to ensure that they are going up in the tiers of Marriott Bonvoy, because just what it opens up for them in terms of their experience and their life and so on. So that's one's a case study, I think, of fantastic loyalty programs. And actually, one of the people that was working with us, brilliant guy, sort of decided to leave and start his own startup purely around what the best path to the highest tier of loyalty programs is. Right? So that you manage your budget in a way to get to the highest tier in certain popular loyalty programs with the lowest amount of spend.
I hope there was a non-compete there.
Am I giving away the idea? I don't know.
No, but it's great.
Maybe we'll beep that out later. And of course, there's a secret sauce in there, and there's a very proper understanding of the underlying problem to be able to build that sort of thing. But it's a very, very real space.
Yeah, for sure. I'll tell you what is not a secret at all is OpenAI using Scarlett Johansson's voice.
Allegedly? Or no, has it been...
Allegedly. Apparently they've used the Sky voice during a recent GPT 4.0 demo. I'm going to pretend like I know what that is. But basically they've used her voice. She is now seeking legal counsel for this. The voice basically sounds like the voice of the robot woman, whatever, in Her, the movie Her. Have you watched the movie?
I have, yes.
Yeah,
but that wasn't Scarlett Johansson, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure. I will have to check that. But apparently it sounded very familiar. I do think it was Scarlett.
It was her?
I do think it was. You know what? We can, because this is a raw podcast, we can check it right now.
Check on the fly, yes. Or maybe I'm thinking not of her, of Ex Machina.
Yes,
okay, no, I was thinking
Her.
Ex Machina. Her was her.
Yeah, apparently it was, So that's an interesting, problem with AI, I think, right? Like just the other day, I gave InVideo permission to use my voice for AI Reels that we've started doing on Smash Your Business. And,
cool.
And I had to say, before I gave my voice to InVideo to use, I had to say I give InVideo permission to use my voice. But then I was thinking, okay, but permission until when to use my voice?
Or to use your voice in what context,
exactly.
Right?
So that's freaky, isn't it?
But you did anyway, so I guess you'll find out.
I did anyway, so it's too late. I always do that. I just do things without thinking about them.
And I think a lot of these technologies, they bet on, you're going to go for convenience rather than read the small print, right?
Exactly.
And it works for them. A lot of us, have less of an issue with privacy and personal IP, so to speak. Somebody like Scarlett Johansson probably allocates a huge amount of money to her likeness and her voice and so on. So it's much more of a commercial issue rather than a privacy issue.
How much do you use technology in your life besides the regular laptop, phone? How integrated is it into your life?
I think I stopped resisting a few years ago. And basically, wherever technology made my life more convenient, I adopted in full. So I don't buy books anymore, for example.
Oh, no.
Yes, unfortunately. It doesn't mean I don't read, but now I read on different platforms, and I also include audiobooks, etc. What it's meant is I'm consuming more. Right, because it's actually more convenient to me. It can fill up spaces where I wasn't able to fill before.
Apparently, it's better for your eyesight as well, and it's better if you read it on the what's it called?
Kindle.
The Kindle, instead of reading it on an iPad or on a page of a book. Apparently. Who knew?
Probably true. Too late for me, but good to know.
My eye has been drawn to what is on your phone, which is Keeper, and that's a barcode for the website.
Yes, well, that's a barcode actually for my business card.
Ah, that's for your business card. Okay,
exactly.
Nice.
So it makes it easy, to pass on your contact details in a business meeting, etc., rather than the paper cards.
Great marketing strategy. I didn't even notice how much my eyes were going to that. So I like that.
There you go. Full adoption.
Yeah, love it. Walid, congratulations again.
Thank you so much.
I'm looking forward to seeing where Keeper goes. And speaking of that, before we end this episode, what are you going to use the money for?
Okay. Well, the equity part of it, of course, is to continue building the product, is to spend some money scaling up, using marketing and so on. But the debt component is very specific in its use, and it is for our product, which is rent facilitation, which effectively allows us to bridge tenants and landlords, where we pay the landlord in lump sum and then allow the tenant very conveniently by credit card to pay their rent monthly, which is a very, very in-demand service for us. We've proven that demand. We've allocated money into it,
and we've got demand right here.
Excellent.
Right here.
You know where to go.
Exactly. Cool. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but that's really, gosh, what a concept. Love it, because I never thought that we would have a concept like this anytime soon. And then when you started coming on the show, and I was like, actually, that's a brilliant idea, because I don't save. I'm not that great at saving. And I'm not going to go too much into my finances, but let's just say
we're all in the same boat. It's about cash management, and it's about convenience. And we just asked the market, how would you rather pay? And 60% came back to us digitally monthly, while today only 2% of them
I was just digging a deeper hole for myself, and you just pulled me out of it. Thank you, Walid. That's why you're such a great co-host.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you next Wednesday with Walid, and we'll see you tomorrow here in the studio or in the World Trade Center. Catch you later.